Hi, Jonathan. So just the first question, Court Square in Long Island City has seen significant residential development with thousands of new residents and large buildings continue to be built. Although the city has tried to balance the unplanned residential development by promising Queens Public Library to reopen the closed library branch and budgeting money for a new elementary school in the neighborhood, there really hasn't been any real progress or updates from the SCA or Queens Public Library on the new school or reopening the library branch. As a council member that represents the neighborhood, what steps can you do to prevent these scenarios from occurring in the future? And now that we're in the current situation, I guess what steps can we do to ensure the city actually delivers its promise for the new school and to reopen the library?
Yeah. Well, okay, so like what a lot of people might not be familiar with, but like we have some of the largest class sizes in our district. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have some of the largest class sizes in our district in New York City. A lot of that just because we're not well, it's a combination of things, right? There's the issue of like giving proper allocation of funding for our New York City schools, but also because like we've prioritized giving space to real estate developers instead of the needed amenities and just our communities institutions that are needed to do all the work of educating our kids, of all that social reproduction work, right? We've just kind of glossed over that and deprioritized it so that so that we could be funneling more funding to or just more value to real estate developers. So first of all is making sure that we're really like taking back like authority over our public spaces. Like our public spaces belong to us. We should be like completely comfortable in making sure that they are put to use in the ways that benefit our community. So I'm not going like as a city council member, I would never zone public land allow any public land to shift into private hands. I think that that's, has to be one of those things that are prioritized. But then also ensuring that we're funding our public schools, making sure that, I think that's the big one. There's like a lot of conflicts that are going on right now with the city budget. There's been a lot of like austerity measures, city agencies really across the city have been cutting jobs. What we got to do is make sure that we are fighting, for all of our workers, really, whether they be teachers or, working in libraries or any of the other city agencies.
Oh, perfect. No, thank you so much. The second question is, District 26 is made up of diverse neighborhoods that are pretty segregated today. Today families in one neighborhood can live, eat, work, and send their kids to different schools than other families. Since these communities don't intersect, you end up with perspectives from one neighborhood describing Long Island City as filled with, I guess, ghost towers or not a lot of people living there. And then the other perspective describes, Long Island City as overcrowded with a lack of school seats and public space and sewage, right, systems. As the elected official representing the overall district, how do you reconcile these perspectives and different communities to ensure kind of better connectivity, but also overall representation for the district?
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is an issue within New York City at large. But it is obviously it's been magnified within our district. During my time as I taught actually in schools across New York City, and during my time teaching, I like got to see like firsthand the deep disparities that exist within for like at the final point, right, in the classroom, what that actually looks like. And like if we're going to really commit to ending like the segregation that exists both within our city's institutions, but also like within like communities, like, you know, with like land use. We got to do a couple of things. You know, first of all, New York City, you know, New York's the only spot that has like you know, the SAT, like the testing that you know, allows kids to get into like specialized schools. Like, you know, we're the only spot that will judge kids and really their futures and their potential based around just one test, right? We should stop doing that. But we also, like, when it comes to like land use, especially, yeah, 60% of the district, 60% of new building in the district is just sitting empty. And empty, I mean, both empty in terms of like non-renters, and also it hasn't been sold, like just truly empty. And if we look at, you know, whether it's occupied or not, I mean, it for new building in our district, it could go up as high as 90%. One of the things that I'm a big advocate for is an anti-warehousing tax. So one of the things that we could do is tax, you know, buildings are sitting empty a bit more, so we can incentivize pricing those buildings at a price that you know, regular ordinary working people can afford, you know, both in rent or purchasing, you know, being able to become homeowners. That way we can ensure that you know, working people aren't locked out of certain neighborhoods, out of certain spaces. It also has like the other benefit that it can help us get more folks living on the streets under a roof. You know, we should be like treating housing as a human right. We should be like always trying to find ways in which we can ensure that our homeless population has a roof over the head. You know, during actually, you know, during this last housing fight where we were trying to tackle some of these issues, I remember the last housing march before some of the rent regulations that passed at the state level. You know, a man here in Queens, just actually next to the district, froze to death that night, I remember. And you know, for me at least, I was thinking, okay, these are challenges that we can tackle. We have so much housing that is just sitting empty, and especially when it comes to our district, we can tackle it with something as simple as an anti-warehousing tax.
Perfect. No, thank you. So just two more questions. You know, when Court Square was first envisioned in Long Island City, it was supposed to be this commercial area, an extension of, I guess, Midtown East. However, a lot of the developments end up being these large residential high-rise buildings. Today, Court Square is being positioned as, I guess, a mixed-use neighborhood with some significant commercial development buildings, like some new office space and a new bio life science buildings. What are your perspectives on diversifying the building mixes for commercial businesses, kind of specifically within Court Square, and then if applicable, with what government tools, policies, or incentives or otherwise?
Yeah. So like, you know, across our city, one of the things that we're seeing a lot of commercial space, you know, like sitting empty, right? There's a lot of small businesses that are, you know, closing their doors because they can't continue making rent. So, you know, there's a few things that we can do. First, when it comes to, you know, like our like the privately owned commercial spaces. One of the things that New York City can do that I really advocate for is institute a commercial rent control. This would work, you know, very similar to residential rent control. Just that we're fortunate that the Erstat law, which stops us from instituting like rent stabilization for housing, you know, that is, you know, that really like is a big issue for us in residential housing, but it doesn't stop us from instituting rent stabilization for commercial spaces, so that we can ensure that as like small businesses, you know, are are making a little bit more money, there isn't like a rent bump that like just kind of follows however profitable they are, which will really give more spaces, or I should say more small businesses in our district access to the privately owned commercial space. So that's like a big piece. The other piece that I'm a really big advocate for is supporting community land trusts. So one of the things that's kind of missing, and just kind of missing in our everyday lives, is democratic control of our spaces. With a community land trust, what we would be doing is giving the community access to a space that can be determined, its use can be determined by the community. And that can eventually end up being an incubation space for small businesses, right? We can allocate space for different types of businesses that will really benefit from collaboration with each other. We can we can incubate the new startups of tomorrow that like function as workers cooperatives, and really like expand people's access to building the things that they want to see in the world and being able to be the ones benefiting from the work that they do. I'm particularly excited about a new workers cooperative in the area called or the drivers cooperative, Co-op Ride, which like gives drivers a huge amount of access to determining the conditions of their workplace. And I would love to see our district be a space that gives rise to various institutions like that. That would be incredible. It's totally something we can do. We have the space. We just gotta be willing to fight for it.
Awesome. No, thank you. And so I guess the last question is, the question is really, who would your number 2 ranked choice vote be within the city council district? I know this question was asked to you in March, and I think at the time, Emily Sharp was your response. I don't know if she would still be your number 2 ranked choice vote. And the bonus question would be, I guess, who would your ranked choice vote be for the next mayor of New York City?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I'm like, there's a lot of candidates who, like a lot of people know that, I was, like I was a part of the crew in 2018 that helped Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez get elected. We've been fortunate to be introduced by a lot of the folks that we're a part of like the team leads of that campaign, and like there's this like heavy like cross section of folks with DSA, which has been like a very influential activist organization in Western Queens. Through the past months, there's been a lot of other candidates who have joined the organization. Steve Raga, Lorenzo Brea, Hallie Kim, and I know that there's others, but I can't remember all of them. So like there's a lot of folks who are kind of like gravitating towards a lot of like the political struggles that I've been involved with. And so I'm really happy to see that. But I still would say that probably Emily Sharp would be the one whose politics I most closely resonate with. She has an approach to just, speak very like honestly, very like, she's just very forward and transparent about the things that she's like fighting for. And so I can really appreciate that. But after that, probably like Lorenzo or Hallie Kim, or as long as like folks are like kind of like working to develop a collective politics, right? So that we as workers, like just working class people, we're fighting together for all of our interests. I'm happy to see anybody win who's willing to go to bat for workers. As far as the mayor race, that's like that's a bit trickier because there's I have like less, I guess, like direct political affinity with anybody, but I think that um I'll be voting for Diane Morales and Maya Wiley, and I think that for me those are the candidates really to look at. Uh, yeah, I'd maybe Scott Stringer third. I don't know. I'm kind of undecided. I think that there's just kind of a loose coalition, I guess, of folks who are interested in working class politics, and frankly, we as workers don't have enough power to really like get the things that benefit us recognized in government. And so it's kind of tricky, but I'll mostly just be trying to fight so that those interests are realized.
Great. Now, thank you so much, Jonathan.